of the circumstances that have led us to where we are with this first black president, how race has played into it. I was going to say where we think we're going, but we'll save that till the end. Go ahead, Jeanette, please.
Well, I think that clearly race has been a factor since the election of this president. One, when you look at the resurgence of the states' rights movement across America, you see at least 31 states where legislation has been introduced to reduce voter enthusiasm and voter participation. And if you go on the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights website, the map is showing there are 31 states that have introduced legislation requiring some form of photo ID or some change in the access to the ballot, particularly in those states across the South and the states that President Obama won by some very slim margins. And these efforts have been in large measure funded by an organization known as the American Legislative Exchange, ALEC, American Legislative Exchange Corporation. And these people, some of the Koch brothers in Wisconsin, funded the legislation that spurred the demonstrations that we witnessed in the Wisconsin state legislature. So if you look at, you had stand your ground laws, which resulted in the issue in Florida in about 21 of the same states where you have these voter suppression laws. So there's been a movement back to states' rights. Then you have the emergence of the Tea Party, which has moved to reshape the content of the Congress so that even if the president wants to get certain initiatives passed, he would have to use executive powers as opposed to having this bipartisan legislative power. That was most evident in a bill that should have been a bipartisan system, and that was the health care bill. And it is clear that since this African American, who doesn't even push race as such, has been in office, there has been a continual fight to challenge him on every level, almost to the point of introducing legislation or trying to suggest that he has a Justice Department that is acting inappropriately, and now most recently looking at the foreign policies of this administration. There's a constant growing attack. There has been the disrespect for this president from members of Congress. I mean, for a person to yell from the floor of Congress, "You're a liar," to the sitting president has never happened in at least in the last 50 years of existence of this country, without that person being removed immediately from the floor of Congress. And so race has played a tremendous factor in how the president is treated personally, how the initiatives that the executive branch has proposed have been still stalled in Congress, where very little can pass, to almost embarrass the president, whether it's appointments to the United States Supreme Court or whether it's appointments to his cabinet. Just the frustration of not being able to move things forward, and therefore look and appear as though you are incapable of administering the country.
Yes. Thank you, Jeanette. Our second panelist, please.
I'm Charles Butler, and when you read the premise of this debate, it's slightly skewed. It's not a question, it's a statement about somehow the president is being discriminated against because he's a black man sitting in the most powerful chair in the world. I think race certainly plays an issue. I think if Barack Obama had not been black, he would not have been even in the race to be president of the United States of America. As Geraldine Ferraro said, if this guy wasn't black, he wouldn't even be here. I didn't say that. Geraldine Ferraro, the first woman to run for Vice President of the United States, said that. When we talk about the issues of voter ID and voter eligibility, people try to portray this as something that just happened because Barack Obama was elected president. I just want to point out to you, and I'm going to post my notes so you can go and reference what I'm telling you. What I'm telling you on the internet at my website, charles-butler.com. But several states passed voter ID laws back in 2003. They were Alabama, Colorado, Montana, North Dakota, and South Dakota. Several, and many of these are Democratic state legislatures, as a matter of fact. So let's be clear about that. They're not all Republican legislators, okay? I want to be clear about that. Another thing I want to be clear about too, folks, because it's something that needs to be said. I want to say it because it gets confused and it gets used synonymously, and that's conservative and racism. There's nothing racist about being a conservative or vice versa. You know, they're two different things, but the media tends to use both of them to mean racist. And that skews the argument all the time. When we talk about the Tea Party, there are basically several tenets, there are 12 tenets basically that the Tea Party talks about. I've spoken to Tea Parties all over the country. I've never heard a disparaging word or an epithet thrown towards the president at any time, ever. I was on Capitol Hill when Obamacare was passed. In fact, I walked up, the man who I was with was the woman that Reverend Wilson just referenced. His name is Congressman Joe Wilson. I was up there with him visiting him. If you go to see Joe Wilson, the man who hollered, "You lie," who was proven right by what he said, the president was not telling the truth about what he was saying at the time. But that's not the point. I didn't interrupt you. I'll let you finish, and I've certainly had plenty of times to disagree with you. The reality is Joe Wilson's office, and you can check this for yourself in South Carolina, in Beaufort, South Carolina, is ran by a big black man. He's about 6'6", 400 pounds. His whole office he got black folks. He has black folks on the Hill. He probably has more black people than any of our black congressmen here working in his office on the Hill. So those are things we need to talk about when we call people racist, and we say, you know, it was disrespectful. Sure, it was disrespectful. He apologized. The DOJ, Eric Holder. I was sitting talking to Ed Meese, who I've known for 30-some odd years. And Ed Meese said, you know, I've known Eric Holder. We mentioned Eric Holder. We brought Eric Holder into the Justice Department. I'm surprised that Eric Holder is doing what he's doing. And we can talk about the issues with the JOD, but they're constantly being defeated. They're constantly being refuted. They're constantly putting out disinformation. And disinformation is when you tell untruth and you're deceitful. Misinformation is when you put out inaccurate information. But disinformation is what this administration and a number of its agencies, I think, have done, and we've proven that they've done this, just like with the Libyan fiasco that's happening. They're starting to call it Benghazi Gate, unfortunately. But I said from the outset that President Obama would be just like President Woodrow Wilson, who was the ardent racist, and Jimmy Carter, who wasn't too far behind, but you only had a few black folks up there. And it takes Andrew Young to talk about Jimmy Carter, who's one of my fraternity brothers, by the way. Department of Labor. You know, I'm not even going to get in the Department of Labor. Disrespect. Well, you know, I think that this president has been disrespected less than other presidents. George Bush certainly was disrespected, dogged, talked about all the time. He's part of the job. We live in America. We don't walk lockstep. We don't worship anyone. People have the right to say what they want to say in this country about anyone at any time, within the bounds of the law, which Reverend Wilson certainly knows. And objectionists, let me just say this, and I'm closing. The president sent 3 budgets to the Hill. 3 budgets. They got no votes. Not one Democratic vote. 414-0 in the House, 97-0 in the Senate, and 93-0 the last one he sent. His appointments, we don't control, the Republicans don't control the Senate. That Senate is controlled by Harry Reid. Harry Reid and Pelosi sat shoulder to shoulder after Barack was elected, and they said this: we do not work for the president talking about obstructionists, that was the beginning of your obstructionism, those two people.
Thank you, Charles. And Monroe, please.
That was an example of misinformation and disinformation.
That's right.
To begin with, quoting Geraldine Ferraro about Obama not going anywhere. If he had not been a black man, I mean, from that statement, you would think that being a black man in America was golden. We run everything. You know, we're not the largest crowd, largest people in jail, or the largest non-population of it.
That's because we're criminals.
Being a black man, being a black man is a great advantage. Everybody else could be very jealous of all of us who just have a cakewalk. I mean, things work well for us, and that's how Obama got ahead, of course. Now, if we go to the facts, there was a poll that came out today where they asked Americans, voters, not would you vote for a Mormon or would you vote for a black man because people would lie. So they asked them, do you know of someone who would not vote for Romney because he's a Mormon? 13% said yes. They know people who, friends of theirs, who would not vote for Romney because he's a Mormon. Then they were asked, do you know people who would not vote for Barack Obama because he is black? 26% said they know someone who would not vote for him because he is black. When Obama became a candidate, he got more death threats than anyone ever in the history of the presidency. And I'm sure that wasn't because he was black. It was because, which he's incompetent or something. And they knew this ahead of time. Charles and he and I have talked on Facebook, chatted on Facebook. So I know his nonsense inside and out.
And I know yours.
Yeah, right. So one of the things is that he likes to say, which is the echo chambers, one of their minds, is that Obama's incompetent.
I never said that.
You have told me.
I've never said
Okay.
that.
Yeah, yes, you have. But
Well,
anyway,
go
let me
check
finish.
your-
I did not interrupt
Okay.
you. And I'm not going to be I'm not going to filibuster either, so I'm almost through.
All right.
Charles, one of the Republican echo chambers minds is that he's not a leader, he's incompetent. The truth of the matter is the first 2 years of the Obama administration, he accomplished more than any other president up until LBJ, all the way back till LBJ. He got now. The problem is right-wingers didn't like what he got accomplished. But it's one thing to say you don't like it. It's another thing that you should say you're not doing it. Okay? So, I mean, it's just been, we know about that, because he did not have a record for them to attack, and they just made stuff up. So he wasn't an American citizen. He's a Marxist. He's a Muslim. He's a puppet of Reverend Wright. And you know, how you could be both those things at the same time is magical and mysterious to me, but Charles probably will be able to explain that to us.
No, I won't. No, I don't believe that myself.
Okay, all right. So anyway, I will leave it there so that we can have some flow between us and hopefully that you guys can participate also.